She was fleeing from dangerous men. She got into the wrong car thinking it was the end, but it was the beginning of something even darker. A forbidden love marked by secrets, redemption, and desire, where no one escapes unharmed. Watch this story until the end. You'll be surprised by this story. If you like love stories, romance, subscribe to this channel, leave your comment. We post videos like this every day. Continuing. It was raining as if the sky wanted to wash away the sins of the city that night. Amber Sullivan, at 34, was running through an industrial zone of Portland, with her chest burning and her eyes glazed with terror. The heel that had broken 3 blocks back forced her to continue barefoot on the wet asphalt, and the black dress she'd worn to the gala meeting was stained with someone else's blood, Morgan's blood, her assistant, who had discovered along with her what was really happening in the silent corridors of the Hope Foundation. For the past 3 years, Amber thought she had been rebuilding her life after a traumatic divorce that had left her with nothing but invisible scars. She was the coordinator of a respected social project for sheltering refugees and women at risk, an organization that received million-dollar donations from influential businessmen and politicians. Amber received awards, gave lectures at universities, displayed tired but sincere smiles in charity campaigns. Her face had become a symbol of hope for hundreds of women who passed through social reintegration programs. But behind the scenes, behind the locked doors of the 8th floor, whispered conversations revealed a truth that made Amber vomit with horror the first time she understood. The project was just a facade for an international human trafficking network. The vulnerable, women who came seeking help, were catalogued, evaluated, and the youngest or most attractive simply disappeared from official records. The reports that Amber signed, trusting her team, masked transfer documents to luxury brothels in other cities, other countries. Amber discovered everything by chance, on a night when she returned to the office to retrieve forgotten documents. She heard familiar voices coming from the meeting room, the sweet voice of Rachel, the secretary who always brought her coffee, negotiating prices for fresh merchandise with someone on the other end of the phone. The tone was so natural, so professional, that for a moment Amber thought she was going crazy. But when she managed to access the digital files using Rachel's password, which she had seen being typed dozens of times, reality hit her like a cold slap. Spreadsheets with names, ages, photographs, transportation routes, dollar values next to detailed physical characteristics, and at the end of each line, red stamps, processed, shipped, delivered. Amber recognized faces. She remembered Yara, the 19-year-old Venezuelan who had arrived pregnant and said she would return the following week for medical help. She never appeared again. She remembered Cecilia, an Angolan woman who spoke Portuguese with a singing accent and just wanted a safe place to sleep while waiting for refugee documentation. She disappeared after 3 days. All of them were in the spreadsheets, all with the red stamp. Amber copied everything onto a flash drive, her hands trembling so much that she had to try 5 times before managing to insert the device into the USB port. When she finished, it was already dawn, and she needed to leave without arousing suspicion. She pretended normalcy for 2 weeks, continuing with her usual routine, smiling at Rachel, greeting her superiors, signing reports that she now knew were molded lies. But she was planning how to expose everything: contacts in the press, in the district attorney's office, in the FBI. Until Morgan, her closest assistant, a smart and brave 26-year-old woman, noticed that something was wrong. Amber tried to push her away, made up excuses, but Morgan was persistent. And on a Friday afternoon, when the office was empty, Amber gave in and told her everything, showed her the files, explained the plan to expose it all. Morgan turned pale, then red with anger. "Amber, you have no idea who you're messing with. Look here, these names. I know this one, he's a congressman. This other one owns 3 construction companies that build half the buildings in this city. And this one, my God, this is the judge who signed my employment contract when I started working here. They spent the night planning. Morgan knew an investigative journalist from New York, someone who had already brought down similar operations. They arranged to travel the following weekend to personally deliver all the evidence. Amber felt for the first time in months that there was light at the end of the tunnel. But someone was listening. On Monday, Morgan didn't show up for work. Amber tried to call, but the phone was turned off. On Tuesday, Morgan's car was found in Forest Park with signs of a struggle on the driver's seat and blood on the steering wheel. On Wednesday, Amber received an unmarked envelope on her desk. Inside, a photo of Morgan gagged, with swollen eyes, and a simple note. You have until Friday to hand over everything. After that, she dies, and so do you. Amber couldn't sleep, eat, pretend normalcy. On Thursday night, she tried to negotiate on the phone that came with the note. A male voice, calm and educated, explained the rules. She was to appear at the Foundation's charity gala on Friday as if nothing had happened. During the event, she would discreetly deliver the flash drive in the club's library, where someone would be waiting. In exchange, Morgan would be freed, and both would have 24 hours to disappear from the city. Amber accepted. There was no choice. But when she arrived at the library of the Portland Club, wearing the black dress she had chosen because it showed she wasn't armed, she found Morgan kneeling on the floor with her hands tied behind her back. She was alive, but barely breathing. A man in a grey suit held a revolver pointed at the young woman's head. The flash drive, he said, without even looking at Amber. Amber handed it over. The man took it, verified the contents on a laptop, nodded. Then he shot Morgan. The report echoed through the empty library like dry thunder. Morgan collapsed forward, and Amber saw the blood spreading across the Persian carpet beneath the motionless body. Her ears rang, her vision blurred, and for one eternal second, she couldn't move. "You too," said the man, turning the gun barrel toward her. Amber ran. She crossed the party hall like a hurricane, knocking over champagne trays, bumping into elegant couples who looked at her in astonishment. Someone shouted her name, but she didn't stop. She ran down the club stairs to, at a time, lost her heel halfway and continued barefoot. Behind her, she heard footsteps, raised voices, the sound of communication radios crackling orders. She ran through the downtown streets until she could no longer breathe, then continued walking fast, changing direction at each corner, seeking places with people around. Her mind was working in survival mode. She needed to leave the city, but couldn't use a credit card, couldn't go back home, couldn't call anyone she knew. She had only the money she carried in her purse, $300, and a cell phone she wasn't sure was safe to use. It was when she reached an abandoned gas station in the industrial zone, far from downtown, that she managed to stop and think. She was soaked from the rain, trembling from cold and adrenaline. She borrowed a cell phone from an attendant and called a rideshare. She gave the address of a bus station in the neighboring city. She just needed to disappear, run, exist somewhere, else with another name, far from everything she knew. When a black car stopped at the dark corner, with the engine running and the headlights off, Amber didn't hesitate. She recognized the license plate that appeared on the app, opened the back door, got in quickly, locked herself inside. "Go, please, just go," she said, breathless, throwing herself onto the leather seat. The driver didn't respond. He didn't even turn to look at her. He just put the car in motion, accelerating down the empty avenue. Amber closed her eyes and tried to control her breathing. For the first time in hours, she felt minimally safe. She was escaping. She was alive. Maybe she could get far enough away to start over. It was only after a few minutes, when she tried to check the route on the borrowed cell phone, that she realized her mistake. The device that was on the seat beside her wasn't the same one she had used to call the car. The screen showed a different app, a different driver's name. She had entered the wrong vehicle. Her heart raced again. She looked forward, trying to see the face of the man at the wheel in the rearview mirror, but he kept his head down, eyes focused on the road. He was tall, broad-shouldered under a dark leather jacket. The hands on the wheel were large, with visible scars on the knuckles. "Sorry," Amber said, her voice coming out higher than intended. "I think I got into the wrong car. Can you drop me off at the next stop?" Silence. "Please," she insisted. "I need to get out." The man finally looked at her in the rearview mirror. It was just 2 seconds, but Amber felt as if he was seeing through her soul. His eyes were dark, deep as wells, with an intensity that made her forget for a moment that she was afraid. There was something in that look. It wasn't a threat, but it wasn't comfort either. It was recognition, as if he knew exactly who she was and why she was there. "No," he said, and his voice was deep, with an accent that Amber couldn't identify. "It wasn't from Portland. Maybe southern, maybe foreign. You're not getting out, not yet." Amber tried to pull the door handle, but it was locked. Panic rose in her throat again. "I don't have money, if that's what you want. I don't have anything valuable." "I know exactly what you have," he replied, accelerating a bit more, "and I know someone wants to kill you because of it." The phrase hit Amber like a punch to the stomach. How did he know? Who was he? Another one of them? Or something else? "Who are you?" she asked, trying to keep her voice steady. "Someone who won't hand you over to them," he said. "At least not today." Amber leaned back in the seat, her entire body trembling. She didn't know if it was relief or terror, but something in his tone, in the way he said, "not today," made her believe that maybe, just maybe, she wouldn't die that night. They drove in silence for more than an hour, leaving the city, taking secondary roads that Amber didn't recognize. The rain diminished to a fine drizzle, and the car's headlights cut through the rural darkness like blades of light. Amber watched the landscape pass by, sparse houses, plantations, small abandoned factories, and tried to understand where she was being taken. When the car finally stopped, they were in front of an old mill, a stone and wood construction that seemed abandoned for decades. There was light in the second-floor windows and smoke coming from the chimney. Someone lived there. The man got out of the car, and for the first time, Amber could see him completely. He was indeed tall, must have been over 6 feet, with a lean but strong body under the dark clothes. The stubble accentuated his angular face, and when he approached the back door to open it, Amber saw that he limped slightly on his left leg. "You can get out," he said. "No one will hurt you here." Amber got out slowly, her bare feet touching the packed dirt ground. The air was clean, smelling of rain and vegetation, so different from the urban chaos she had left behind. It was almost peaceful. "How do you know about me?" she asked, following him toward the mill door. He stopped, his hand already on the doorknob, and turned to look at her. This time he didn't avert his gaze. "Because I was there," he said simply. "I had been watching for weeks. I saw when you discovered the truth. I saw when they tried to buy you. I saw when they tried to scare you. And I saw when they decided to kill you. Why? Who are you?" He opened the door but didn't answer immediately. When he finally spoke, it was almost in a whisper. "Someone who's also trying to destroy these people, but from the inside out." Amber entered the mill without knowing if she was saving herself or walking into an even more complex trap. But at that moment, with her feet hurt and her heart shattered, any place was better than the rain-soaked street stained with Morgan's blood. The man closed the door behind her, and Amber heard the sound of several locks being turned. She was trapped, but for the first time in days, she didn't feel like she was going to die. At least, not that night. The interior of the mill was a living contradiction. From the outside, it looked abandoned for decades, but inside, it revealed itself as a carefully organized refuge. The stone walls were thick, keeping in the heat from the fireplace that crackled in the center of the main room. Rustic, but comfortable. Furniture occupied the space. A worn leather sofa, a solid wood table, shelves filled with books in various languages. In the air, the smell of strong coffee and something Amber couldn't identify. Perhaps incense, perhaps just the aroma of old wood. The man moved through the room with silent familiarity, lighting oil lamps that cast dancing shadows on the walls. Amber remained standing near the door, still processing where she was and with whom. She observed him in silence, the way he moved despite the slight limp, the economical precision of each gesture, the way his eyes constantly scanned the environment, even in his own home. "There are dry clothes in the second-floor bedroom," he said without looking at her, pointing to a narrow wooden staircase. "Shower too. The water takes about 5 minutes to heat up." Amber didn't move. "First tell me who you are and how you know me." He stopped what he was doing, organizing papers scattered on the table, and finally faced her. Under the golden light of the lamps, Amber could see his face more clearly. He must have been about 40, maybe less. It was hard to tell for sure because of the marks life had left. A thin scar cut across his left eyebrow. His eyes were dark brown, almost black, with expression lines that suggested someone who smiled little but thought a lot. "My name is Cole," he said, as if he were giving away a dangerous secret. "Cole Matthews. And you're Amber Sullivan, coordinator of the Hope Foundation, divorced 3 years ago, lives alone in an apartment on 15th Avenue, takes your coffee without sugar, and always catches the same bus to work at 7:15 in the morning." Amber's blood ran cold. It wasn't possible that he knew so many details about her daily life, unless you were following me. "I was protecting you," Cole corrected, going back to shuffling the papers. "There's a difference." "Protecting me from what? Since when?" "A day since your name appeared on a list of people who needed to be eliminated. That was 3 weeks ago." Amber felt her legs weaken. She sought support against the wall. 3 weeks? They wanted to kill me 3 weeks ago? You were getting too close to the truth, asking questions about women who disappeared, questioning discrepancies in the reports. They realized you weren't just an obedient employee. Cole stopped organizing the papers and turned fully toward her. "The order was to eliminate you discreetly. Car accident, maybe. Robbery gone wrong. Something that wouldn't raise suspicions. And you prevented that? I messed up their plans a few times. The flat tire that made you miss the bus last Monday. That was me. The plumbing that burst in your building on Thursday, making you leave later, also me. Small things to break the routine, make it harder for them to catch you off guard." Amber tried to process the information. All those small inconveniences that had irritated her in recent weeks had been protection? Why would you do that? Who are you to them? Cole hesitated. It was the first time Amber had seen him show any uncertainty. He walked to the fireplace, stood with his back to her, watching the flames. "I worked for them," he said finally. "Still do, technically. I'm what they call a problem solver. When someone becomes too inconvenient, they call me." Amber's stomach turned. "You're a killer." "I'm many things." Cole turned, and the firelight danced in his eyes like small demons. Ex-FBI agent, ex-undercover operative, deserter, vigilante. Killer too when necessary, but never of innocence. How do you know I'm innocent? Because I spent 3 weeks watching your every move. I saw how you treat the women who come to the foundation. I saw you cry in the bathroom after discovering that a 17-year-old Venezuelan girl had disappeared from the records. I saw you stay up until 3 in the morning researching international organizations fighting human trafficking. Cole took a step toward her. I saw you discover the truth and instead of running to save your own skin, try to find a way to expose everything. Amber felt tears burning her eyes. And Morgan? Did you see them kill Morgan too? Cole's face hardened. I saw, and I couldn't prevent it. They changed the location at the last minute, used people I didn't know. When I got to the club, you were already running. Why didn't you save me before? Why did you let her die? Because I couldn't. Blow my cover yet. There's something bigger at stake, Amber. The Foundation is just one piece of a much more complex puzzle. If I had exposed myself that night, I would have lost the chance to dismantle the entire operation. Amber exploded. All the stress, the fear, the guilt over Morgan's death transformed into pure fury. So her life was dispensable? Was that it? A necessary sacrifice for your bigger plan? No, said Cole. And for the first time his voice carried genuine emotion. Her death tortures me as much as it tortures you. But if I had revealed myself that night, not only would you and Morgan be dead, the other 50 women I can still save would be lost forever. What other 50 women? Cole went to one of the shelves, pulled out a thick book, and from inside it, took out a folder full of photographs. He handed it to Amber. These. Amber opened the folder with trembling hands. They were photos of young women, most appearing to be between 15 and 25. Each photo had handwritten notes, names, ages, countries of origin, dates of disappearance. Amber recognized some faces, women who had passed through the Foundation and whom she believed had been transferred to other social programs. Are they alive? She asked, her voice almost a whisper. Most of them, yes, scattered in luxury brothels in Seattle, Los Angeles, Las Vegas, Chicago. Some were sold to private collectors, rich men who maintained private harems. Others are on isolated farms, forced to work as sex slaves for rural workers. Amber went through the photos one by one, memorizing each face. How did you get this information? Because I helped put some of them there. The folder fell from Amber's hands, scattering photographs across the wooden floor. She looked at Cole with absolute horror. You participated in this? I did, he confirmed, not averting his gaze. For 2 years I was responsible for organizing transport, fake documentation, bribing authorities. I believed I was working for an international intelligence organization that infiltrated these networks to dismantle them from within. I discovered too late that there was no official operation. It was all true. I was really helping to enslave innocent women. My God, Amber murmured, backing away from him. When I discovered the truth, I tried to get out. They made it clear that wasn't an option. People like me don't retire. We die or disappear. So I pretended to remain loyal while secretly beginning to sabotage operations. Documents that got lost, shipments that never reached their destination, authorities who received anonymous tips at the right moment, and they didn't suspect. They did. That's why I'm here, in this abandoned mill, instead of in a penthouse in Miami. Cole bent down to collect the photos scattered on the floor. I'm being hunted by the same organization hunting you. The difference is they want me alive, at least until they figure out exactly how much information I have and who I've already passed it to. Amber watched him collecting the photographs, carefully as if each one was sacred. There was something in the way he touched the images that revealed a deep pain, a guilt that consumed him from within. Why didn't you go to the police? The FBI? Interpol? Cole laughed, but it was a bitter sound. Because half the authorities who should be fighting this type of crime are being paid by the organization. The judge who signed the search warrants that always turned up nothing? Bought? The federal agent who archived investigations for lack of evidence? Bought? Some prosecutors, several police officers, even people from the Justice Department. He finished collecting the photos and put them back in the folder. There's no one to trust within the system. So what do you plan to do? Stay here forever, hiding? No. I plan to destroy the entire operation. From the inside out, as I should have done from the beginning. Cole looked at her with renewed intensity. And you're going to help me? Amber took a step back. Me? No way. I just want to disappear, vanish, never hear of these people again. That's not possible, Amber. You've seen too much, know too much. They'll hunt you to the ends of the earth if necessary. The only way for you to have a normal life again is if they no longer exist to threaten you. I'm not a spy. I'm not a secret agent. I'm just a social worker who discovered the truth by accident. You're much more than that. Cole approached her, and Amber could feel the heat emanating from his body. You have access to files I could never obtain. You know the internal routine of the Foundation better than anyone, and most importantly, they don't know you're alive. What do you mean? The car you were supposed to have taken last night? The driver was found dead this morning with a bullet in his head. Officially, you disappeared during a robbery gone wrong. Your body was never found. To all intents and purposes, Amber Sullivan is dead. The revelation hit Amber like a punch to the stomach. The driver died because of me. He died because he was in the wrong place at the wrong time, like Morgan, like many other people. Cole stopped right in front of her, so close that Amber could see the small scars on his neck. The question is, are you going to let these deaths be in vain, or are you going to use this second chance to do something that matters? Amber looked into his eyes and saw something she didn't expect to find. Not calculating coldness, but passion. A controlled fury that burned like embers, under ashes. Cole wasn't just a repentant killer seeking redemption. He was a man at war with himself, carrying the weight of every life he hadn't been able to save. If I agree to help you, she said slowly, what happens to me afterward? When it's all over? You get to have a life again. With a new identity, if necessary, clean documents, constructed history, the possibility to start over wherever you want. Drenyu, Cole averted his gaze for the first time since they started talking. I probably won't survive to see the end of this. Why? Because to destroy an organization like this, sometimes you have to sacrifice yourself. And because... He hesitated, as if he were fighting against himself to speak. Because there are things about me that you still don't know. Things that, when you discover them, will make you hate me as much as you hate them. Amber felt something strange in her chest. Not fear, but curiosity. Who was the man in front of her, really? What secrets did he carry that were worse than admitting to having participated in human trafficking? Tell me, she said. Not today. Today, you need to rest, eat, process everything that's happened. Tomorrow, we start planning. Cole. It was the first time she had pronounced his name, and something in the way it came from her lips made his eyes immediately turn to her. Yes? The person who ordered Morgan's death. Do you know who it is? I do. Are you going to kill her? Cole held her gaze for a long moment before answering. No, you are. The silence that followed was as dense as fog. Amber felt a shiver run down her spine, not from fear, but from something more dangerous. Anticipation. Go take a shower, Cole said softly. There's food in the kitchen when you come down. And Amber. Yes? Welcome to the world of the living dead. Amber climbed the narrow staircase with legs that felt like cotton. The second floor was simpler than the ground floor, a Spartan bedroom with a double bed, an old wardrobe, and a door that led to a small but clean bathroom. On the bed, someone had left women's clothes, jeans, black t-shirt, underwear still, with the tag. As the hot water from the shower washed Morgan's blood from her skin, Amber tried to organize her thoughts. 24 hours ago, she was an ordinary woman with an ordinary life and ordinary problems. Now she was officially dead, hidden in a mill with an ex-assassin who knew every detail of her routine, planning a revenge that would probably kill them. And the most disturbing part of all this was that for the first time in years, Amber felt truly alive. When she went down to the kitchen, a rustic but well-equipped environment, she found Cole preparing a soup that smelled of garlic and fresh herbs. He had changed the leather jacket for a grey t-shirt that revealed defined arms and more scars than Amber had thought possible on a human body. "Thank you for the clothes," she said, sitting at the wooden table. "They belonged to the previous resident," he replied without turning around. "She was about your size." "What previous resident?" "A woman I helped disappear 6 months ago. The ex-wife of a drug trafficker who discovered too much about her husband's business." Cole served the soup in 2 bowls and sat across from her. "She stayed here for 2 weeks before getting documents to travel to Europe." "And now?" "Now she's a Portuguese teacher at a small school in France, married to a local baker, pregnant with her first child." Cole started eating. Sometimes stories have happy endings. Amber tasted the soup. It was delicious, seasoned with precision. "You cook?" "Well, I learned out of necessity. Hard to order delivery when you're hiding from the mob." They ate in silence for a few minutes. Amber observed Cole discreetly, noting how he always maintained an alert posture, how his eyes constantly moved to the windows, how his right hand always remained free, close to where he probably carried a weapon. "Can I ask you a question?" she said finally. "You can. Why did you really save me? And don't give me that story about a secret operation to dismantle the organization. I want to know the real reason." Cole stopped eating and looked at her for a long moment. When he answered, his voice was lower, more intimate. "Because when I first saw you 3 weeks ago, you were crying in the office after discovering that a 16-year-old girl had disappeared. You stayed late researching, making calls, trying to find any clue about where she might be." He paused. "And because, at that moment, you reminded me of someone I couldn't save a long time ago." "Who?" "My sister." Amber felt her heart speed up. There was real pain in his voice now, a vulnerability that hadn't been there before. "What happened to her?" "That's a conversation for another day." Cole stood up, took the empty bowls. "You must be exhausted. Rest. Tomorrow we start working." Amber didn't move. "Cole." "Yes?" "When you said there are things about you that will make me hate you, does it have to do with your sister?" Cole stopped washing the bowls. His hands closed into fists over the sink. "It has to do with the fact that I handed her over to them," he said without turning around, "and that she is now one of the people who most wants to see you dead." The revelation fell on Amber like an ice blade. Before she could fully process what Cole had just confessed, he had already left the kitchen, leaving her alone with the weight of a secret that changed everything. Amber woke up in the middle of the night with her heart racing. For a moment she didn't know where she was. The dark room, the smell of old wood, the heavy silence of the countryside. Then memory returned like a flood. Morgan dead, the escape, Cole, the devastating confession about his sister. She sat up, in bed, trying to control her breathing, when she heard a sound coming from downstairs. She descended the stairs silently, following the noise to the main room. Cole was sitting on the floor, his back to the nearly extinguished fireplace, surrounded by dozens of photographs spread around him. He wore only dark sweatpants, his bare torso revealing a map of scars that told a story of violence that Amber could barely imagine. He held a specific photo between his fingers, looking at it with an intensity that made Amber stop in the shadow of the staircase. "Can't sleep either?" he asked without turning around. Amber approached slowly. "How did... You know I was here. Your heart accelerates when you get nervous. You can hear it from far away." Cole finally looked at her, and Amber saw that his eyes were red. Besides, nobody sleeps well the first night after discovering they're officially dead. Amber sat on the sofa behind him, trying to see the photo he was holding. It was of a young girl, maybe about 15, with long brown hair and eyes that were exactly like Cole's. Dark, intense, intelligent. "Is that her?" Amber asked softly. "Emma. She was 16 when she disappeared." Cole ran his thumb over the photo, a gesture so tender that it contrasted completely with the hardness Amber had seen in him until then. "She was smarter than me, braver, more pure. She wanted to be a doctor, save lives. She always said the world had too much evil and that she would fix at least a small part of it. What happened?" Cole placed the photo on the floor and turned to face Amber. The weak light from the fireplace embers cast shadows that accentuated the hard lines of his face. "Our parents died when I was 22 and she was 14. Car accident. Or, at least that's what we were told at the time. We were orphans, no close relatives, no money. I was young, stupid, desperate to take care of her." He ran his hand through his hair. "A man appeared, introduced himself as a businessman, said he could give me work. Lots of money quickly, just had to make some discreet deliveries." Amber could already imagine where the story was leading, but she didn't interrupt. Of course they weren't just deliveries. It was drugs at first, then weapons, then worse things. But the money was real, and Emma could study at a private school, had decent clothes, food every day. I thought I was doing the right thing. Until when? Until they discovered I was beginning to ask too many questions about certain operations. Until they realized I wasn't just an obedient employee, but someone who could become a problem. Cole stood up abruptly, walked to the window. "So they decided to use Emma as a guarantee of my loyalty." Amber felt a chill. "They kidnapped her. Worse. They convinced her that I was in danger, that the only way to save me was for her to come with me to a safe house. I was on an operation in another state when I received the phone call. Your sister is with us now, Cole. If you want to see her again, you'll do exactly what we tell you without questioning." My God. I obeyed for months. I did terrible things, killed people who probably didn't deserve to die, helped destroy entire families, all because they had Emma. Until one day, after almost a year, I received a photo of her. Cole rested his forehead against the cold window glass. She wasn't the girl I knew anymore. She was thin, with an empty look, dressed in a provocative way. She had an expression on her face I had never seen before. Pure anger, mixed with something broken inside. Amber approached him. Did they hurt her? They hurt her, sold her, broke her, and then molded her again. When I finally managed to locate her 2 years later, she was no longer a victim. She was part of the organization. She had risen in the hierarchy, become one of the most dangerous people in the scheme. Cole turned to Amber, and she saw silent, tears running down his face, and she hated me with an intensity I didn't know was possible. Why did she hate you? You tried to save her. Because in her head I handed her over to them. Because when she most needed protection, I failed. Because while she was being tortured and molded into an assassin, I continued working for the same organization that destroyed her. Cole's voice was broken now. And because when we finally met again, she discovered that I had learned to love the work. What do you mean? You don't understand, Amber. After years of doing this kind of thing, a part of me started to enjoy it. The adrenaline, the power, the feeling of always being in control. I became too good at what I did, and that scared me, but it also addicted me. Cole went back near the fireplace, crouched again among the photos. When I found Emma again, she saw this in me immediately. She saw that I was no longer the brother who was trying to save her, but someone who had become just like the men who destroyed her. Amber sat on the floor beside him, not quite knowing what to say. The pain in Cole's voice was so real, so deep, that she felt as if she were sharing the weight he carried. Where is she now? Running the human trafficking operations throughout the entire West Coast. Emma Matthews, or Rachel Sanders as she calls herself now, is one of the 3 most powerful people in the organization. Cole picked up another photo from the floor, this one of an adult woman with platinum blonde hair and eyes as cold as ice. Amber could barely see any resemblance to the girl in the first photograph. And you, Amber Sullivan, are at the top of the list of people she wants to see dead. Why, she doesn't even know me. Yes, she does. She knew about your investigation even before I did. It was she who ordered your elimination. It was she who ordered Morgan killed. Cole looked at Amber with a mixture of pain and determination. And it was she who discovered that I took you out of Portland before the assassins arrived. Amber felt as if the floor had disappeared beneath her. She knows I'm here? Not yet, but she'll find out. Emma always finds out. Cole stood up, extended his hand to help Amber stand up too. That's why we need to act quickly. We have maybe 48 hours before she traces this place. And what are we going to do in 48 hours? We're going to steal all the Foundation's files, get irrefutable evidence of the entire operation, and deliver it to someone I trust in the U.S. Attorney's Office. Cole walked to the table, picked up a map of the region. Then we're going to blow up the Foundation headquarters with all the physical evidence they can't let fall into the wrong hands. Blow up? Literally. Homemade bombs. It will look like a terrorist attack, will draw international media attention, will force an investigation they can't buy or intimidate. Amber looked at the map, then at Cole. And then you disappear. New identity, new life, far from all this. And you? Cole didn't answer immediately. He just continued studying the map, marking specific points with a red pen. Cole, and you? I'm going to have a final conversation with my sister. Amber felt a knot in her stomach. You're going to try to save her? No, I'm going to kill her. The silence that followed was as dense as lead. Amber looked at Cole, really looked, and saw a man divided between love and hate, between redemption and revenge. She saw someone who had lost everything that mattered and who was now willing to sacrifice his own soul to ensure that other people didn't go through the same. Are you sure that's what you want? She asked softly. I'm sure that's what needs to be done. That's not the same thing. Cole stopped marking the map and looked at her. Amber, Emma isn't the girl I raised anymore. She's become a monster. She's already killed more innocents than I can count. If I don't stop her, she'll continue destroying lives for the rest of her existence. What if there's a way to save her? What if something of the girl she was still remains? There isn't. Cole's voice was firm, but Amber saw the pain in his eyes. I've already tried, Amber. 2 years ago, I managed to be alone with her for a few hours. I tried to talk, tried to remind her of who she was before. Do you know what she did? Amber, shook her head. She brought in a 15-year-old girl, Venezuelan, like several you received at the foundation, and tortured the girl in front of me, slowly, methodically, while explaining to me, in the calm voice of someone commenting on the weather, how she had learned that causing pain to others was the only way not to feel her own pain. Cole closed his eyes, and when she finished, when the girl was almost dead, Emma smiled at me and said, "Now you understand, brother. There is no salvation for people like us. There is only power and submission, and I chose never to be submissive again." Amber felt nauseous. "What happened to the girl?" "I killed her. Shot to the head. It was the only mercy I could give her." Cole opened his eyes, and Amber saw that they were completely dry now. "And it was at that moment that I knew my sister had been dead for a long time. What remained in her place doesn't deserve salvation." Amber approached Cole, stopped right in front of him. Without thinking about what she was doing, she placed her hands on his face, forcing him to look her in the eyes. "You're not a monster, Cole. I know you think you are. I know that carrying all this guilt makes you feel like you're just like them, but you're not." "How can you be sure?" "Because a monster wouldn't have saved me. A monster wouldn't be planning to destroy his own life to ensure other people stay safe. A monster wouldn't cry looking at photos of the sister he lost." Cole placed his hands over Amber's, but didn't move them away from his face. "Amber, I know you think you don't deserve redemption, but you do, and I'm going to help you get it. Even knowing everything I've done, even knowing that I'll probably die in the next few days." Amber didn't know where the courage came from, but she moved even closer to him until there was no more space between their bodies, especially because of that. What happened next was inevitable. Cole lowered his head and kissed her, and Amber felt as if she had been struck by lightning. It wasn't a gentle or romantic kiss. It was desperate, hungry, loaded with all the tension and emotion that had accumulated between them. Cole's hands intertwined in her hair, and Amber tasted the salty flavor of tears that she didn't know were hers or his. When they separated, both were breathing heavily. "This is crazy," Cole murmured against her lips. "I know," Amber replied, but she didn't move away. "You should be afraid of me." "I should, but I'm not." "Why?" Amber looked into his eyes, saw the vulnerability he was trying to hide, the frightened boy who still existed behind all the hardness. "Because I recognize pain when I see it. And because—" She hesitated, then decided to be completely honest. "Because for the first time in years, I feel alive. Truly alive." Cole kissed her again, this time more slowly, exploring, savoring. His hands moved down her back, and Amber felt a wave of heat that had nothing to do with the nearby fireplace. She responded to the kiss with an intensity that surprised her, as if she were trying to compensate for all the years of emotional emptiness in a few minutes. They could have continued right there, on the floor of the room, among the photographs of missing women and maps of secret operations. But the sound of a distant engine made them separate abruptly. Cole was immediately alert, all muscles tense. "Stay here," he said, picking up a pistol that Amber hadn't seen from under a pile of papers on the table. "What is it?" "Probably nothing, but don't move until I come back." Cole disappeared through the back door, leaving Amber alone with her racing heart and the taste of him still on her lips. She waited, counting the seconds, trying to distinguish sounds in the darkness outside. The engine had stopped, but now she heard low voices, words she couldn't make out. After a few minutes that seemed like hours, Cole returned. He seemed relieved, but still cautious. "Was it what I thought?" Amber asked. "No. It was Jack, the man who supplies me. He brought food, equipment I had requested." Cole put away the gun. "But he also brought news." "What kind of news?" Emma has mobilized all the cells of the organization. There are search groups in 3 states looking for us, and she put a price on your head that will make half the criminal world want to find you." Amber felt her blood freeze. "How much?" $5 million. Alive. Why alive? Because she wants to interrogate you personally before killing you. She wants to know exactly what you discovered, who you told, what other people might represent a threat. Cole went back to the table, started folding the map. "We have to leave here now." "Where to?" "There's a safe house in the Cascades. 3 hours by car from here. From there we can plan the next step." Cole stopped what he was doing and looked at her. "Amber, you still have time to back out. I can get you documents, money, a safe route out of the country. You could be on a beach in Mexico tomorrow night, starting a new life." Amber thought about the proposal. It would be easy to accept, run away, forget everything that had happened. But when she closed her eyes, she saw Morgan's face. She saw the faces of the dozens of women in the photographs. She saw the Venezuelan girl that Emma had tortured to prove a point. "No," she said, opening her eyes. "I'm staying." "Are you sure?" "I am, but I want to do one thing before we leave here." "What?" Amber approached Cole again, but this time there was no hesitation in her movements. She pulled him down and kissed him with a passion that came from a deep place inside her, a place she didn't even know existed. "I want you," she whispered against his lips. "Now, before everything turns to chaos again?" Cole looked her in the eyes, searching for any sign of doubt. "Amber, are you sure? Isn't it just adrenaline, fear, the tension of the moment?" "Maybe it's a bit of that too," she admitted. "But it's mainly because I look at you and see someone who understands what it is to carry guilt, what it is to try to redeem yourself from past mistakes, and because—" She placed her hand on his chest, feeling the accelerated beating of his heart. "Because if we're going to die in the next few days, I don't want to die without knowing what it's like to be with someone who truly sees me." Cole didn't respond with words. Instead, he lifted her from the floor as if she weighed nothing, carried her up the stairs, and when they reached the bedroom, deposited her carefully on the bed. What happened next was an explosion of accumulated need, of desperate intimacy, of 2 wounded human beings finding solace in each other. They made love as if the world would end the next morning, because maybe it would. And when they finally fell asleep, intertwined, Amber knew she had changed irrevocably. She was no longer the naive social worker who had discovered the truth by accident. She was a woman who had chosen to fight, who had chosen to love an impossible man, who had chosen to embrace the darkness, to find the light on the other side. When they woke up a few hours later, it was almost dawn. Cole was immediately alert, checking the windows, verifying equipment. Amber watched him move through the house like a predator, preparing for the battle he knew was coming. "Ready?" he asked, offering her a backpack with supplies. Amber looked one last time at the mill that had been her refuge, then at the man who had become her anchor amid the chaos. "Ready," she replied. But as they walked to the car, Amber couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. And when Cole started the engine and they began to drive away on the dusty road, she was sure she saw a reflection in the trees, as if someone were pointing binoculars in their direction. The hunt had begun. The safe house in the mountains was a modern construction hidden among century-old pine trees with dark glass that prevented any view of the interior. Cole drove on increasingly narrow roads until they reached an automatic gate that opened as soon as the car approached. Apparently, he had activated some kind of remote control during the trip. Amber observed the security measures, discrete cameras, motion sensors, even what appeared to be barbed wire camouflaged among the vegetation. "How many houses like this do you have?" she asked as they unloaded the backpacks. "This is the last one," Cole replied, checking a security panel on the inside of the main door. "The others have already been discovered, or I had to abandon them." The interior was Spartan but comfortable, functional. Furniture, state-of-the-art communication equipment, and a fully equipped kitchen. But what caught Amber's attention most was the entire wall, covered with monitors showing dozens of different angles of the property surroundings. "Paranoia?" she asked, pointing to the screens. "Experience," Cole corrected, turning on the systems one by one. "Jack said Emma was mobilizing teams across 3 states. She'll find this place eventually, but at least we'll know when she's coming." Amber sat on one of the sofas watching Cole work. Even after the intimacy they had shared a few hours earlier, he maintained a professional distance, as if he were already mentally preparing for the separation they both knew was inevitable. "Cole," she said softly. "Hmm? What happened between us at the mill?" He stopped what he was doing, but didn't turn to look at her. "It was real, Amber. At least for me it was. But it can't happen again." "Why?" "Because the more I get attached to you, the harder it becomes to make the right decisions. And the right decisions will probably cost me my life." Cole finally turned, and Amber saw that he was struggling with his own emotion. "I need to be willing to sacrifice myself to ensure you get out of this alive. If I start thinking about a future with you, I'll hesitate at the wrong moment." Amber stood up, walked to him. "What if I don't want you to sacrifice yourself? What if I want both of us to get out of this alive?" "Then you're being naive." The harshness in his voice was painful. "Amber, look around us. Look at what our life has become in less than 48 hours. Safe houses, weapons, escape plans. This isn't romance, it's survival. And in survival, not everyone always makes it to the end." "But sometimes they do," she insisted. "You said you've already helped other people start over. Why would we be different?" "Because none of the other people I helped was being hunted by my own sister. Because none of them knew secrets that could bring down the entire organization. And because," Cole hesitated, "because I never cared about any of them the way I care about you." The confession hung in the air between them like a fragile bridge. Amber took a step toward him, but before she could respond, one of the monitors began to flash red. Cole was immediately in maximum alert mode, checking the screens, adjusting controls. "Movement on the northern perimeter," he murmured, enlarging one of the images. "2 vehicles, maybe 8 people." Amber felt her stomach sink. "They found us." "Not yet. They're just combing the area." Cole picked up an already prepared emergency backpack from under the control table. "We have maybe 15 minutes before they reach the house. There's a trail through the back that leads to an abandoned helipad. If we can get there." The sound of glass shattering upstairs interrupted them. Then heavy footsteps on the ceiling. "Damn," Cole whispered, drawing his weapon. "They're already inside." Amber heard voices coming from above, at least 3 different people, communicating in codes she didn't understand. Cole pulled her behind the sofa, gestured for her to remain in absolute silence. "Cole Matthews," a female voice echoed through the house, coming from the sound system he had just turned on. One of the intruders had discovered the controls. "I know you're down there, and I know you have my prey with you." Amber recognized the voice immediately, even after so many years. Her blood froze, not from fear, but from absolute shock. "It can't be," she murmured. Cole looked at her urgently. "What is it?" "I know that voice." "What do you mean you know it?" Amber closed her eyes, trying to process the impossible. "It's Rachel, my secretary at the Foundation." The confusion on Cole's face transformed into growing horror. "Amber, your secretary's name is Rachel." "Yes, why?" "Because Rachel was my sister's real name." Emma was just the nickname I gave her when we were children. The revelation hit Amber like a slap. Rachel, the sweet woman who brought her coffee every morning, who always asked about her personal life, who knew exactly where Amber would be at any time of day. Rachel, who had been the person closest to her at the foundation for 3 years. Rachel, who was actually Emma Matthews, Cole's sister. "My God," Amber whispered. "She was by my side the whole time. She knew everything about me, about my routine, about your fears, your insecurities, your vulnerabilities." Cole completed, his voice loaded with cold anger. "She studied you like a predator studies prey." Rachel's or Emma's voice echoed again through the sound system. "Amber, darling, I know you must be confused now. 3 years pretending to be your friend. 3 years listening to you talk about your loneliness, about how you wanted to find someone who really understood you." A pause, then a low laugh. "I can imagine how you must be feeling now that you've discovered that your great love is my brother. The man who handed me over to be raped and tortured when I was 16. Amber looked at Cole and saw that he was as pale as paper. "She's lying," he said. "I never—" "Cole, my dear brother," Emma's voice interrupted, as if she could hear them. "Why don't you come up here so we can talk? Bring Amber too. I'm sure she'd love to hear some details about our childhood that you haven't told her yet." Cole vehemently shook his head at Amber, indicating that they should by no means go upstairs. But then they heard another sound, a muffled scream, clearly from someone being hurt. "Oh, I forgot to mention," Emma continued, her tone still sweet and controlled. "I brought a friend of yours, Jack, the man who supplied Cole. Poor thing. He tried to lie to me about where you were, but after a few minutes of persuasion, he was very collaborative." Amber saw Cole clench his fists. Jack was clearly someone important to him. "You have 5 minutes to come up," Emma said. "For every minute of delay, Jack loses a finger. And Amber, darling, you won't want to know what happens if I completely lose my patience." Cole looked at Amber, and she saw that he was calculating options, strategies, possibilities of escape. But they both knew there was no way out. Emma had cornered them perfectly. "We're going up," Amber said before Cole could protest. "Amber, no. She knows every detail about me, Cole. She knows how I think, how I react, what my weak points are. If we try to escape now, she'll anticipate us." Amber touched his face. "Besides, you need to have this conversation with your sister. You both need it." They climbed the stairs slowly, Cole in front with his weapon in hand, Amber right behind. The upper floor had been completely ransacked, furniture overturned, drawers open, papers scattered across the floor. In the center of the main room, Jack was tied to a chair, blood flowing from wounds on his arms and face. A large, bald man held a knife near the prisoner's neck. And sitting elegantly in an armchair as if she were receiving visitors for afternoon. T was the woman Amber had known as Rachel, except that now she looked nothing like the shy, helpful secretary from the foundation. The brown hair had been replaced by platinum blonde cut in a severe bob. She wore a tailored black suit and high-heeled shoes that probably cost more than Amber's monthly salary, but it was her eyes that shocked the most. They were exactly like Cole's, but completely empty of human warmth. "My dears," she said, smiling, "good of you to join us." Cole kept his weapon pointed in her direction, but Amber noticed that his hand trembled slightly. "Emma." "Rachel, please." Emma died a long time ago. She crossed her legs, a gesture that Amber had seen 1,000 times in the office. "Amber, you look surprised. Didn't expect to see me again." "I trusted you," Amber said, finding her voice. "For 3 years, I trusted you. And I took very good care of you, didn't I? Always knew where you were, who you talked to, what you discovered. Always one step ahead of any problem that might arise." Rachel Emma tilted her head. "Until you became too inconvenient. Why didn't you kill me before? Why wait so long?" Because you were useful, darling. A dedicated, competent coordinator with an impeccable reputation in the international human rights community. Your approval gave credibility to our work. Emma smiled coldly. Besides, it was fun to watch you try to save women I had already sold. Amber felt nauseated. How many? How many women passed through me? And you? All of them, Amber. Each of the last 50 women you tried to help. All were processed, catalogued, and sold with your unconscious signature on the transfer documents. The impact of the words made Amber stagger. Cole took a step toward her, but one of Emma's henchmen, Amber now saw that there were at least 5 armed men scattered around the room, pointed a gun in his direction. Now, Emma said, rising gracefully. Let's maintain civility. After all, we're family. We're not family, Cole said, his voice loaded with hatred. Family doesn't do what you did. And what exactly did I do, dear brother? Emma walked until she was right in front of him, so close that Amber could see the physical resemblance between them. Survived? Adapted? Learned to use the rules of a brutal world to my advantage? You became just like the men who hurt you. No, Emma said, her voice suddenly sharp as glass. I became worse, because they at least admitted what they were. You always pretended you were better. Emma, I tried to save you. You sold me. The explosion of anger was so sudden that everyone in the room jumped. You handed me over to those men knowing exactly what they would do to me. That's not true, Cole said, desperate. They said it was just to guarantee my loyalty, that you would be safe. Safe? Emma laughed, but it was a sound completely devoid of humor. Do you want to know what safety is, Cole? It's what I built for myself after I learned that I can't trust anyone, not even you. Amber observed the confrontation between the siblings and felt as if she were watching the collapse of 2 souls shattered by the same tragedy. But then something Emma had said earlier returned to her mind. Rachel, she said, interrupting the discussion, you said I signed transfer documents without knowing, but I always read everything I signed. Emma turned to her, the cold smile back on her face. Ah, yes, you were very careful indeed. That's why we had to be creative. What do you mean? I mean there were 2 versions of each document, darling. The version you read and signed, and the version that was filed afterward. Wonderful technology, document digitization. Very easy to make small changes after the signature. Amber felt as if the floor had disappeared beneath her. You forged my signature. Technically, your signature was real, just redirected to slightly different documents. Emma returned to the armchair, sat down again. But that doesn't matter now. What matters is that you 2 came here exactly as I expected. What do you want, Emma? Cole asked. I want you to kill Amber in front of me. The silence that followed was deafening. Amber felt as if she had stopped breathing. Never, Cole said. Oh, but you will. Emma made a gesture, and one of the men brought the knife closer to Jack's neck. Because if you don't kill her, I'll torture your friend here to death, slowly, and then I'll hunt down every person you've ever helped, every woman you saved, every contact you have in the world. And I'll kill them one by one, sending you photos until you go insane. And if I kill Amber? Cole asked, his voice completely controlled. Then I let you go. New identity, new country, new life. Consider it my farewell gift. Amber looked at Cole and saw that he was really considering the proposal. She saw the cruel logic behind the calculations he was making, one life for many others. Cole, she said softly. No. Amber, There's another option, Amber interrupted, addressing Emma directly. You want to kill me? Then kill me, but leave everyone else alone. Emma laughed. Ah, how noble. But no, darling, it's not about you dying. It's about my brother finally understanding what it means to choose between what's right and what's necessary. Like you chose when you decided to become a human trafficker? Amber retorted. The smile disappeared from Emma's face. I didn't choose anything. I was forced to adapt to a world that never gave me alternatives. There are always alternatives, Amber said. You chose revenge instead of healing. You chose to become the monster instead of fighting the monsters. And how did that work out for you, Amber? Your whole life trying to save people, trying to make a difference, and look where it brought you. About to die at the hands of the man you think you love. Amber looked at Cole, saw the agony in his eyes, the internal war he was waging. And in that moment, she knew what she needed to do. You're right about one thing, Rachel, she said, deliberately using the false name. There are always consequences for our choices, and I choose not to let you turn Cole into the same monster you became. Before anyone in the room could react, Amber threw herself toward Jack, knocking over the chair and causing the man with the knife to lose his balance. In the chaos that followed, Cole fired at two of the henchmen. Jack managed to free himself from the ropes and disarm a third man, and Amber rolled behind a sofa to escape the shots that began to fly around the room. When the smoke cleared, literally because someone had hit an oil lamp that started a small fire, Amber found herself face to face with Emma, who was pointing a pistol directly at her head. Very dramatic, Emma said, but useless. But then Amber heard Cole's voice behind Emma. Lower the gun, sister. Emma turned slowly, keeping the pistol aimed at Amber. Cole was 3 meters away from her, his own weapon pointed directly at his sister's heart. Are you going to shoot me, Cole? She asked, and for the first time her voice carried a genuine emotion, not anger, but something like sadness. Are you going to kill the little sister you promised to protect forever? The little sister I promised to protect died a long time ago, Cole said, but Amber could see tears in his eyes. You're just what's left. Then shoot, Emma whispered. End this once and for all. What happened in the following seconds seemed to unfold in slow motion. Amber saw Cole's finger move on the trigger. She saw Emma close her eyes as if she were waiting for death, and she saw the exact moment when Cole realized he couldn't do it. Emma saw it too. Her eyes opened, and she smiled. Not the cold, calculating smile from before, but something genuine and devastatingly sad. I thought maybe you could, she said. It would be more merciful. And then, before anyone could stop her, Emma turned the gun to her own head and pulled the trigger. The sound of the shot echoed through the room like a final thunder. Emma collapsed to the floor, blood spreading. Across the wooden floor, her eyes still open, looking at the ceiling. Cole fell to his knees beside his sister's body, sobbing in a way that broke Amber's heart. She approached slowly, placed her hand on his shoulder. She chose, Amber said softly. In the end, she chose. Chose what? Not to turn you into a killer of your own sister. It was the last gift she could give you. They stayed there for a few minutes, Amber holding Cole as he cried for the girl Emma had been and for the woman she could have become. Jack, injured but alive, took care of tying up the surviving henchmen and calling contacts in the police who were still trustworthy. It was only when the sirens began to sound in the distance that Amber realized it was over. The human trafficking organization would crumble without Emma. She was the brain behind everything, the person who kept all operations running. The files they had collected would ensure that the guilty were punished, and they were alive. 6 months later, Amber Sullivan, now officially called Elaine Carter, was sitting on the porch of a small but comfortable house in rural Oregon, watching the sunset paint the sky orange and pink. Beside her, Cole, who had returned to using his real name after all charges against him were dropped, was reading a history book while drinking coffee. The transition to normal life had been more difficult than either of them had expected. There were nights when Amber woke up in panic, thinking she heard Rachel's sweet voice calling her name. There were moments when Cole disappeared for hours, walking through the fields, fighting against demons that would probably never completely leave him in peace. But there were also mornings like this one, when they woke up intertwined, when Cole prepared coffee and Amber took care of the plants they had started growing together. There were evenings when they sat on this same porch, planning trips they might take, talking about children they might have, building a future that neither of them had believed possible. "You know what I discovered?" Amber said, resting her head on Cole's shoulder. "What?" "That it's possible to start over, really. Even after everything that happened, even carrying the scars, it's possible to be happy." Cole put the book aside, put his arm around her. "Do you regret it? Staying, fighting, choosing this life with me?" Amber thought about the question. She thought about Morgan, about the women who had been saved when the organization was dismantled, about the peace she had finally found. She thought about the man beside her, who had learned to smile again, who woke up every day choosing to be better than he had been the day before. "Never," she said, turning to kiss him. "I never regret it." And as the sun disappeared on the horizon, painting the world gold, Amber knew that sometimes the darkest stories lead to the brightest light, that sometimes you have to go through hell